I was born in Yonkers, New York on November 23rd, 1941, and that was the year that the world started for me.
I was born in 1940 on January 5th. Everybody thought I was going to be a New Year's baby, but me. I had other plans. I was late. I've been late ever since. And I was born in Nyack Hospital in Nyack, New York, which is about 20 miles north of New York City.
It was the Second World War when I was little, and I do remember that one year when I was little, my grandmother, instead of planting a garden full of fruits and vegetables, she planted flowers. The whole thing was flowers, and that meant the war was over.
I remember when the war ended, everybody was standing around talking, and I guess they were anticipating some news, and all of a sudden the fire alarm went off. And everybody started hugging her, it's over, it's over, it's over. So I was a little guy, I was 5 years old, I couldn't figure out, how did they know that the war was over when the fire alarm went off? So about a week later, the fire alarm went off for a fire. I ran in, I grabbed my mother's legs, I said, Mommy, Mommy, the war's over, the war's over.
The street that I lived on was, the houses were quite large, and they were not really rich, but nobody was rich at that time. Nobody was.
We had a good, tight family. My grandfather and grandmother lived in a house up on the street, and then there was an apartment complex further down from the street, and then there was our house, which was my parents owned our house and property, and then there was a little cottage over to at the far end of the property, at the far side of the property. And almost everybody who lived in there was family.
I lived in a big house with no other brothers and sisters till I was 9. And me and 5 adults. My 4th grandparent died 6 months before I was born. But I had both my maternal grandparents and my father's mother were living with us. And it was really nice. I didn't talk baby talk for very long again. As a sophomore, I came to Bob's school in the middle of the school year. I was a junior and I didn't know anyone, and I remember sitting there in the cafeteria, kind of alone, and up pops this young man, and he was a nice fellow. And
Had a good eye.
okay, we got to be friends, and he asked me out, and it wasn't anything romantic for me, but he was decent looking and tall and nice, and he wanted to take me places, where I'd meet other kids and stuff like that. So he took me to a youth meeting for a number of churches, and Bob was there. There were about 50, 60 kids, maybe, Bob, probably, yeah. And it was already going when we got there, and so we walked in, and there was a big meeting room, and we were kind of in the open doors with it. So Bob stood up, the speaker was asking questions, and Bob stood up and said something. And it was funny, and kind of everyone laughed. And I said, "Who's that, Jim?" He says, "That's my best friend."
Oh.
That's Bob. And so he says, "Would you like to meet him?" And I said, "Oh yes, that would be a good idea. I'd like to meet him." So he introduced us.
There was this young lady that I was very interested in, and I convinced her to run for treasurer, and she was Hungarian. So at any rate, I'm campaigning for her, because I'm the campaign manager, and I drove past her house, and I noticed that she was in the driveway playing tennis. You know, they had strung up a net or something, and she and the head majorette, Kathy was a majorette, were out there banging this tennis ball back and forth in their shorts. And I said, "This needs to be investigated fully." And so I stopped and I said, "Hi, you know, I'm Bob Cassis." Well, they knew who I was, and I said, "Well, have you decided who you're going to vote for? You know?" So I started talking to him, but I had to think fast about how to break the ice, and but I did notice that she was a long-stem beauty. It was the first time that we had a personal connection of any sort. That was how I would say I moved from beyond knowing her name to this might be something I want to look into someday. I came home from Thanksgiving, for Christmas vacation, and I get this phone call, and the phone call is from Kathy.
It was from me.
Yeah. And she said, "Oh, listen, do you have all your Christmas shopping done?" You know, how could I have all my Christmas shopping done? It was,
Just got home.
yeah, I just got home. So she said, "Well, we're going over to the Westchester Mall, the first mall in the United States." It was the first mall in the United States. And yeah, why don't you, if you don't, why don't you come? We have to buy some presents for my brother. And we don't know what to get a 12-year-old kid, you know? So he said, "Why don't you come and help us?" I said, "Well, I need to do some shopping." And I thought, Kathy's coming, might be interesting. So I was very happy to do that. So by the end of the day, we were holding hands.
By lunchtime, we were holding hands.
Well, your memory's better than mine.
Who reached first?
You did.
Oh, okay.
You know what you want, go after it. So I mean, it was good. And then we went to the toy store, and I picked out 5 presents for Tommy. And then we
My
picked
brother.
up, yeah,
My brother.
Okay.
My little brother.
and then we picked up Bud, her father, from work, and he said, "Oh, let's go shopping." And he goes to the same toy store. He gets a cart. He's loading his cart up with toys for Tommy. Then I realized they didn't need my help for doing that. I've been set up. I wasn't complaining.
I didn't set you up for that.
No, her mother
My mother did.
Yeah. So at any rate, that was our first date.
Oh.
We went shopping together.
We still occasionally go out Christmas shopping
Shopping on the
together on
22nd.
the 22nd of December.
We had a military wedding. I had Bill and 3 other classmates came and made a sword arch, did the honor guard thing for me. My brother was the best man. I was looking forward to a very romantic ceremony and reception and a traditional wedding ceremony, and very serious about it. Very happy about it. I'd be less than honest if I didn't say I was looking forward to getting to know this woman very well. And our expectation was, we're married, we're going to make the most of this. And we're not in the negative sense. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities for melding two lives together. And we did a lot of that. It was good.
First couple of years of our marriage, we didn't have much money at all.
It's kind of.
$356 a month before taxes.
And we bought a house.
On our
On our
honeymoon.
honeymoon, we bought a house.
What?
Yes, it was $9,500. We put $500
$500
down,
down.
which was our honeymoon money. And so we didn't spend a honeymoon. After we got to the point we bought the house, we went back and spent it at Bob's house.
And Mom and Dad were both working. There was nobody in our home.
Okay.
And we said,
well,
this is
let's
silly.
go.
We're paying $50 a day in a hotel plus food in Portland, Maine.
Yeah.
So we went down, we went to the realtor, and we said, we have $500 in our pocket.
Can we
buy
make a house? You're right. And he showed us 3 of them.
3 of them.
Yep. The first year, I think, is always difficult because there's a lot of learning about living with another person and how are you going to do it.
Yeah.
And so I remember I cried sometimes. You know, it was because it wasn't that he was bad or I mean, I was just hard. It was hard to make adjustments, you know. The funny thing about the differences right away that we learned is that in my house that I grew up in, my mother cooked every day. I mean, every other day. Every other day. And the second day was the
Leftovers.
Leftovers, yeah. And that was the way our life was. So that was what I was expecting, and but Bob's never had leftovers, and they had to be 3 days later and disguised as something else. So that was different. It was a difference in our expectations.
I remember when she put this thing on the table, I said,
We had that
I had this
last
last night.
Yeah. Well, that's the kind of thing that couples have when they first get married, is that you talk about a lot. I mean, I thought we talked about a lot of things. We were pretty good about that, but there's always stuff that you leave out. And so you get, surprised by the leftovers that, you didn't talk about. So, and it was fun.
Come from the family I come from, if you have a disagreement and you blow up,
And you get over with it.
you get over it.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah.
She internalized it. And so she would be hurt.
Yeah,
And
months later.
For me, it was over. For her, I had injured her. I think one of our counselors along the way, not marriage or family therapist, but one of the counselors were, you gotta be careful not to bruise the other person's spirit. And I was routinely doing that, and I didn't even know about it, I never thought about it. It was over. I mean, it wasn't a problem. What's your problem? But I'd find her, hurting, and I'd say, well, I better change this. And we worked through that together, I think, when we became Christians. If you want to talk about a watershed event in our lives, that was coming to give our lives to Christ. She did first, and I saw such a change in her that I wanted to do the same thing. And so within a month apart, we both became professing and believing Christians. even though we'd gone to church all those years, we had never really recognized that being a Christian is being in a relationship with Christ and dependent upon Him and Him alone for our relationship to God. And when that happened, lots of things, we became far more attuned to the other person's needs and weaknesses and strengths, and we approached life very differently. So it really was a life-changing
that helped a lot.
experience.
Yeah.
And it helped our relationship tremendously. I have to be very careful not to blow up. I have to be ready to say I'm sorry. She doesn't have to do that very often.
I have to remember to say what I'm feeling, because if I stuff it inside, nothing happens. It doesn't change things. So you need to, first of all, understand what's going on inside, and then bring it up in a way that doesn't create a big argument over nothing.
We had a couple things that happened. When we first got married, at our wedding, I think it was, Jean and Marty Erickson came up to us and they said, they always say they love each other when they go to bed. Last thing of the day. And even now, last thing we say is I love you before we go to sleep.
What are 5 things that you love about each other?
Well, first of all, of course, is that she loves me. I love her gentle spirit. She comes up with little things that are fun and precious. Like let me buy a motorcycle, and encourage me to buy a motorcycle. And then for Christmas, she buys me this motorcycle outfit that keeps me safe. So, and she does that a lot. She's kind of, I like that. It's kind of an impish thing about her. She loves the Lord, and He's precious to her. And even when I screw up, she knows she can go to Him and get relief. Even if it takes a while for me to get relief, His is instant. I love that about her. She's smart. She's a very smart woman. And I just was so proud of her. I've been proud of, I married her out of college, so she went back and got an associate's degree with honors, I think it was. And then she went, years later, she went back, got her bachelor's from Mills, and then she got her master's from Reformed. And she's, high B, low A student. And she got honors in Mills, which is a tough school. So, she's smart, and she's a great helper. So, I respect that and count on it. And then, of course, she's a great mom, and I love that about her. My kids are the most blessed kids in the world because their mom is their mom. Kathy's her mom. So that's 6 things I love about her.
Okay. Well, he spins my wheels.
Yeah, that too.
Okay. Okay.
But I don't know how to
I'm going in the order in which they occurred, which I discovered them.
Wow, how can I forget that?
Okay. So,
That's all?
no. All right, the next thing is that, and this is really, really, really important, that he's a person of character. I remember when I was, in high school, and you'd look around and say, that's a good-looking guy, or that's an interesting guy, but you know what? He's trouble. He's not a nice person. Not a good person. Bob's a good person. He's not a perfect person, but he's a good person.
Glad you added that.
He's he's got good moral character, good values, and boy, that's something you want to take to the bank. That's good for the long haul. And he's smart. That's 3. And he can do stuff. Oh, he's very industrious. But it's amazing the things, he never stops learning. He knows a lot of how to do stuff. And he likes to do it. And he never stops learning. For me, that's very secure. It feels good to know that I've got a guy that can take care of me. And you know, it's not like, there's some guys that can't think their way out of a box. If we were in trouble, he would figure out a way to help us survive somehow. Yeah. You know, he's got the survival skills. So that feels very good. And he loves the Lord. I think that's the last, and maybe the cap on all that, is that he's the Lord's man.
We ain't got a barrel of money. Maybe we're ragged and funny, but we're traveling along, singing a song side by side.
One of my earliest memories was Kathy and Beeper. They were messing around, and Dad tied Mom up to a wall. I know it sounds awful, but he tied her to a wall and then gave us kids the hose. And of course, we squirted Mom with the hose.
One of my favorite memories was we went on a road trip when I was like 7 and my sister was 3, and Terry and Bob were there, and we went to Uncle Richie's wedding in Indiana, his first wedding. And this was before car seats. Kathy and Beeper threw like some, I don't know, camping mattresses in the back of their station wagon. It was me and Terry and Bob and them in the car, and my mom and my sister and grandparents were in the other car. Now, when I was growing up, kids should be seen and not heard. And so we did a lot of riding in the car, but we did a lot of quiet riding in the car. And you can ask my sister, she and I can still fight absolutely silently. But for Kathy and Beeper, their car was just like, what is happening? There was camp songs and singing, and we did the whole 99 bottles of beer on the wall, and we were singing the McDonald's song, and they even stopped and got us French fries once, and that was just like, wow, how these people are living. We're just laying in the back of the car, singing away, driving down the road to Indiana. Now, probably they were very tired by the time they got from 99 bottles of beer on the wall to ball number 1, but then they let us just sing it again. So that is one of my, still hands down, one of my favorite memories, was being in that car with my cousins, just annoying adults, but they were really nice about it.
Your grandparents were the best. They in Alaska, they ran the Youth for Christ program. So much positive impact on teenagers' lives. Nowadays, it's pretty typical. You see these high school groups that, you know, these parents, and they come in on graduation night and they try to, you know, do well. Our high school, our local high school, had nothing like that, and so kids would go out on, you know, the graduation night and they get drunk and get killed. Something like that happened one year early when we were there, and and my dad said no. And so the Youth for Christ program led that activity, and they established and set up a no drinking party for the high school seniors for their going in and spending the night out. And we partied and had a great time, and every activity was alcohol free. There was no thing, and my parents were pivotal in that. It was a big program, lots of kids involved, and it was a great program.
One of like the best things in the whole world was like having Cheerios in the morning and like going and picking your own blueberries from the backyard. Just like pick your own berries. So good. So good. And I might like subtly be trying to recreate that in my own backyard with my blueberry bushes and raspberry bushes.
So some of my favorite memories of Kathy and Beeper definitely have to be Christmas morning. Kathy and Beeper threw the best Christmases known to the childhood of the entire world. So, it was just like we'd go over to Kathy and Beeper's, we'd all pile up in our huge 15-passenger van, drive over there. Dad would get open the big night before Christmas book. We'd read the night before Christmas. We'd leave Santa Claus cookies, and then in the morning we'd all go jump on the adults, jump up on Kathy and Beeper. I think sometimes they had to sleep in for an extra 30 minutes, or we were forced to wait until 5 o'clock, or I don't even know, something ridiculous. And finally, at the super late hour, 5 a.m., everybody, all the adults would have on their wonderful pajamas that they wore once a year, and they go downstairs wearing plaid and poofy robes and slippers and all sorts of excessive Christmas morning paraphernalia. And then we'd open our stockings, and each gift was individually wrapped, which is just such a labor of love. And we'd spend the whole morning basically taking turns opening presents, and I don't know, it was just very magical. And I feel like Kathy and Beeper really worked hard to create a very magical Christmas for us, and that it will always warm my heart thinking about that.
So in 8th grade, I did homeschooling with them, kind of through them. Every weekend, I think I would go over there. So Beeper would teach me logic, and I think there's a couple other classes, I'm not sure. And then Kathy, he had the apologetics, and then there's also workmanship stuff. It was pretty awesome. I think a memory with both of them happened with the apologetics class with Kathy. Basically, we were talking about playing in making sure that they're playing in your sandbox or whatever. And then it was Beeper. She's like, but Bob, that's not how it goes. They start just arguing, and then I'm just sitting there while they're arguing for an hour about apologetics. And I learned a lot, I think. I mean, obviously not, because I don't remember exactly what the conversation was, but I remember really being thoroughly pleased with it. I thought it was fun. But yeah, that's one of my favorite memories.
All right, guys. What are some favorite memories you have with Kathy and Beeper?
Oh, the American Girl Doll Tea Party. Mm-hmm. I remember that one. When I went fishing.
You went fishing with Kathy?
Mm-hmm.
Did you catch fish?
No.
No. No fish?
Mm-hmm.
Did you go on a boat?
No.
No.
He got to see how to use a fishing pole though.
Oh, that's fun.
We tried to catch fish.
Oh, well.
We saw a giant one, but we couldn't. It was this big.
It was just you and Kathy?
And my dad.
Oh, that's fun. And then what was the tea party like?
Well, there's scones and cucumber sandwiches, and then the American Girl dolls got to sit down at the table and have tea, real tea, with real sugar. And scones, real scones.
This is the best. I want this tea party.
Well, next time, if we do that, then you could.
Oh.
Like us!
I'll bring my dolls.
I think that Kathy and Beeper have a great relationship. They, I think my father loves my mother more than anybody else in the world. I think my mom loves my dad more than anybody else in the world. My dad puts her first, always. I think that my dad feels incumbent on himself to do the best thing for Beeper that he possibly can ever. And that doesn't mean that he doesn't get good things. It just means that he, that he's always making sure that her needs are met.
Mm-hmm.
I think Beeper loves Kathy more than anybody else.
Well, Uncle Bob and Aunt Kathy, in their relationship, have taught me that all those things that people write about marriage could actually be true. I mean, they appear to the family, and I'm sure to other people, that they have a partnership, an honest partnership, and not, even though they grew up in the 40s and 50s when gender roles were pretty well defined, I feel like while they might have divided tasks that way, I think that Aunt Kathy appreciated Uncle Bob's softer side, and Uncle Bob always appreciated Aunt Kathy's strengths as well. And I always thought, wow, Beeper accepted what came with a military wife's life, with all the moving and the responsibility she might have as an officer's wife, and in return, Kathy appreciated her being home for him and the family so quickly, but then he also supported her in whatever way he could, almost in return for that. So he supported her to get her own education. When I remembered her, she was always in school studying something interesting, and he was always really proud. So for me, I was thinking, well, that's great. He has his strengths, she has her strengths. They build together for a really good partnership.
They're very sweet with each other. Literally the other day when I was making my video with Kathy, he's talking about the importance of finding a soulmate and how him and Beep are very different people, but they're one, and that was really beautiful. So
I've always been envious of their relationship. I mean, I look at them and every day they're doing something for their spouse. They're looking in some way. If Beeper says something, Dad reacts to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He pays attention to what she's saying. Mom pays attention to what Dad says, and they interact with each other. They don't just ignore each other. It's clear to me that my father adores Beeper. It's crazy. He's lived his entire life to please her, and it's awesome.
And they have, differences of opinion about stuff and areas of conflict. But you know what? That's not, I don't think that the conflict is what dominates their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
What dominates their relationship is the love that they have for each other and for us, right? As
Mm-hmm.
a family. How much, I can't, like I said, the amount of love that your grandparents have for you is I mean, I don't think you could measure it. It's just that much. So
I really just think that, they loved their grandchildren. They love their grandchildren a lot, and were always happy to see us and always wanted us to come over and always showed up for things like graduation, birthday parties, and they made sure that they were there at all the big moments, and I think I super appreciate that.
Kathy and Beeper, thank you for being the biggest cheerleaders of your kids and grandkids and great-grandkids. I think I've heard the words, I'm proud of you, more from you guys than from anyone else in my life, and that is huge. You choose your words really carefully and impactfully, And I think, like, I can see in your eyes how much you adore us when you're talking to us. And that's a pretty awesome foundational relationship to have.
God has blessed us so much to have such stellar people to look up to in our lives and to who could possibly care about us. They love us, they love God, they love each other. I think sometimes that I've actually been spoiled by how good God's blessed us with such wonderful parents. They hung in there with us when things weren't good, when we disappointed them. They loved us anyway. And I think they really epitomize, as people, they are really good reflections of the love that God has for us and how much our Heavenly Father, the relationship He wants to have with us and the amount of love and grace that He gives us as people. I don't think that there could be any better gift than to have my mom and dad as parents and as grandparents and great grandparents. They're just phenomenal people.
Someone told me right clear and true about what hurts. I write my story with more than words.